Okay, newest Algebra 2 video meant to help you with problems 7 through 10 on the progress check review. We're going to solve some rational equations. So the one I made up that's sort of different from the ones that are on your review is x over x minus 4 over x plus 5 equals 36 over x squared plus x minus 20. So the idea is basically this. You want to go for the least common denominator. And with regular fractions, it's kind of easy to see what the least common denominator is. But with expressions that have variables in it, it really helps to factor. So you can't factor the first denominator. It's x minus 4. It's first power. Second denominator, x plus 5, also first power. Third denominator is quadratic. It's x squared plus x minus 20. So you want to factor that. So I'm just going to copy all the other stuff down first. This one's not that terrible. It's got a leading coefficient of 1, so you kind of know if it factors, the first term in each factor has to be an x, because x times x is x squared. And now you're looking for two numbers that multiply together to be negative 20, but add up together to be 1, because that's really secretly a 1x in front of there. And those numbers happen to be 4 and 5. We just have to sort out which one's going to be positive and which one's going to be negative. Because if they multiply together to be negative 20, one's got to be negative, one's got to be positive. If they're going to add together to be 1, then it's got to be the 5 that's positive and the 4 that's negative. If you want to check that you factored it right, all you have to do is just FOIL it out. X times x is x squared. X times 5 is 5x. Negative 4 times x is negative 4x. And negative 4 times 5 is negative 20. So those guys in the middle become just 1x, which is what we were looking for, so we're good to go. Now, the goal is to get a common denominator, preferably the least common denominator. So what you hopefully notice is that the first fraction has x minus 4 in the bottom. And the third fraction also has x minus 4 in the bottom. But what's missing is that second fraction does not have a factor of x minus 4 in the denominator. So all you have to do is multiply that by x minus 4, and the problem is solved. But you kind of pay the price and balance things out by also multiplying the top by x minus 4. So now all your fractions have x minus 4 as a factor in the denominator. But the problem is 2 of them have an x plus 5 in the bottom. The first fraction doesn't have an x plus 5, but if we just multiply this guy by x plus 5 over x plus 5, we're good to go. And it's at this point in time where you can make this process get a lot simpler with a lot less writing, because we basically just do not need these denominators anymore. And we should get down to a point that x times x plus 5 minus 4 times x minus 4 has to equal 36. You can just wipe out those denominators. You're basically good to go. If you're at a point where you're trying to solve this equation, it's hopefully very clear that x has to be 3. Because if the bottoms are the same, then the tops have to be the same too. If you're going to divide 3 by 4, you got to find a number that you divide by 4 that gets the same thing when you divide 3 by 4. Well, the only way to do that is if the tops are the same too. So you can kind of just get rid of the bottom. Now technically what we're doing is we're multiplying both sides by x minus 4 and x plus 5, and that's what's wiping out the division by x minus 4 and x plus 5. But that's a lot of stuff to write, so let's just jump right to here. Now, your goal is to make one side 0 and solve this, but before you do that, you kind of have to distribute. So x times x is x squared, x times 5 is 5x. Be careful on the next little part because you're actually distributing a negative 4. So negative 4 times x is negative 4x, and negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. In the center, we've got a 5x and a negative 4x, so that should make x. And we're still equal to 36, but if you just subtract 36 from both sides, you should get down to x squared plus x minus 20 equals 0. And now we want to factor that thing. This should look really familiar, but let's just pretend like it's not. Two things that multiply together to be negative 20 and add up together to be 1 are 4 and 5 if we make the 4 the negative one and the 5 the positive one. So that means x minus 4 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. Subtract 5, subtract 5, add 4, x equals 4, or x equals negative 5. And we're done. Not quite. So the weird little part with these rational equations are these are problems where you have to check for extraneous solutions. Now the check isn't actually that much work, so let's talk about how to do the check quickly. Big important thing that you cannot do mathematically is divide by 0. So if you look at 4, if x was 4, this first fraction would have said 4 divided by 4 minus 4. Well, 4 minus 4 is 0. So 4 makes us divide by 0. This guy is out. Next, let's check negative 5. Negative 5 is okay in the first fraction. Negative 5 divided by negative 5 minus 4. That's just negative 9. We're okay. But negative 5 is not okay in the second fraction. 4 divided by negative 5 plus 5 is 4 divided by 0. That guy's out too. As far as problems go, both your answers might check. Both your answers might not check. One might check and one might not check. It kind of just depends. So you don't necessarily know going in that one's going to fail. A lot of people sort of right at the beginning see the denominators. It's easier probably to see once you've factored. But that 4 and negative 5 are going to be answers that are extraneous should you get them. So they write themselves a little note at the beginning, x can't be 4 and x can't be negative 5. And if you get either of those things as an answer, you got to kick them out. So some people like to plan in advance for what might be extraneous. I usually don't like to do that, but to each their own. So that's pretty much it. You want to factor, but factor, all these problems should factor at the very, very end. But that's pretty much it. So hopefully that helps with problems 7 through 10 on the review.